Welcome to the Avril Lavigne episode. I'm Pat, and this is my co-host Tom. Tom, would you say hello to the good people?
Hello.
Well done, Tom. Nailed the greeting. No, just kidding. But we are, as we inch ever closer to the century mark, we're going to do a dry run of one of what the episodes might look like later, once we have more planned out early 2000s, picking apart pop culture situations, and we're going to take on the Canadian superstar, Avril Lavigne, today. And it's a daunting task. The digger we dug, the deeper we deeped, the darker it got when we dug deep. No, there's definitely a lot of goofy, I think the conspiracy theory about her death was just one of like many really odd things about her fame and her career. And I'm actually kind of excited to get down into it. Tom took some great notes, and we're probably going to start the episode with some now you know facts about Avril. But first, I would like to ask you, Tom, how you are today.
I'm doing okay. I just got out of the most stressful bath I've ever taken.
That seems like anti-bath. Like that seems like against the whole structure of the activity.
Well, let me tell you the story about it, and I'll tell you why the story is relevant closer to the end. It's a quick one. Emphasis on quick. Will you indulge me?
Of course.
Okay. So I've been taking a lot of baths lately. You know, I watch like House Hunters and stuff like that. And anytime the wife or the girl is whining about, oh, I need a bigger bathtub or there's no bath, I've always thought like, who the fuck is taking that many baths? Like people don't take baths anymore. And then, you know, I became one of those girls, and I love a good bath. So
I thought you were going to say for a quick second, like you watch those shows and they're like, I think we want to expand the bath, and you're just screaming as if someone had scored a touchdown for your favorite football team if you followed sports. Like, this is what I'm talking about, baby. I knew they were going to knock out that third wall for a reason. That closet, they weren't using that thing at all. You know, widen it up.
Maybe it'll change to something more along those lines.
I would love. Dude, Jesse got the Do-It-Yourself Network app on like Roku, and we've been watching this dude. We call him Harlow the House Hunter, but that's not his name at all. His name's like Brett Waterman, and he does restoration. It's called Restored. He has the goofiest toothy horse smile I've ever seen, and his hair pattern is, I think, active, like alive in its own right. Like his head of hair is never the same from episode to episode, and he wears cowboy hats a lot. Anyway, he reminds me a lot of Aaron Lonke. Go check it out. It's honestly incredible. Anyway, way off topic. Avril Lavigne. Ties over T-shirts.
Whoa, I'm not done with my story.
That's jumping too far. That's, well, you don't just go straight for the ties. There's things we have to establish first.
So, again, I'll make it quick. The bath, super stressful. Megan made this like tea that she let steep for a few hours, and then we were going to pour it over our heads in the bath and then like have it, you know, mix in the bath water. And we didn't realize that it would burn the piss out of our eyes.
Ooh.
And
which was not the desired effect?
Not at all, dude.
Sure.
Immediately her eyes started burning. Oh. She had to jump out and rinse them out in the sink. And then I thought I was fine. But then my forehead started sweating and all of it went into my eyes with the tea that we had dumped over my head. And
this sounds like a baptism of sorts. This sounds like it would have been very relaxing had it not backfired.
But it ended up being fine, but it's just not the bath I was expecting. So I'm coming into this.
Was this the first bath you've taken in some time?
2 days. I'm a whore for baths now, Pat.
Oh, you're going for it. So that you're not even new to this process. You're bathing it up.
Oh yeah.
You're just bathing. You're a bathing man. You're a bathing boy.
Yep, I'm a bath boy.
Bath boy.
For sure.
That was where this roller coaster was headed. This weird winding highway.
Oh, but the point of the story though is that every time we take a bath together, we put on that Indian flute meditation, which was the original soundtrack for our meditations. So also every time I'm taking a bath, I think like
of death.
That's where this was all coming to.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Oddly enough, in the Albuquerque public or old town square thing they had, that was the only live music ever playing was dudes on just ripping pan flutes. Like it was definitely odd. Like you never saw the occasional anything else, acoustic guitar, and it was always pan flutes. just shredding it. It was
There was
magical. Anyway,
there was an episode of South Park about that. I think the pan flutes.
it's an important instrument, but it is not an instrument that Avril Lavigne played.
Not that I know.
We are a show that appreciates all things Canadian, so this seems like a logical test run for us to do as we go closer to the rebranding and everything like that.
Can I also say you called this a dry run earlier? This is the wettest fucking run you will ever hear in your life.
Well, I'll own that. It's my mistake, and I apologize. I'll try to be more professional as we press forward and try to inform you about the life and career of Avril. So where did it all start?
So I scoured Wikipedia and many other websites to find some fun facts on her, and I was really interested in her early career because she started off super young. Apparently, she started playing guitar at age 10 to Bob Dylan songs. And I love this part. She sang in the church choir until she was 14, then stopped because it wasn't cool.
That is, yeah, I love it so far. I really love it. I'm so glad we're doing this.
So then she was playing country songs in a bookstore in Ontario when she was discovered by the man, I believe, who would then become her agent. She won some kind of battle of the bands and shared the stage with Shania Twain by age 15. And then by age 16...
Another Canadian princess.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yep.
Yes.
And then so she was signed. She dropped out of high school to pursue a $2 million 2-album deal with Arista Records. She got
Leading up to this point, it sounds eerily Taylor Swiftian.
Yeah.
Or Swiftian, I should say. Like, getting noticed, getting to open for some, like the Canadian Taylor Swift. Up to this point, obviously, the genres were different as they unfolded. But anyway.
Started off with country, though.
It struck me. It struck me as sounding oddly familiar. I mean, probably only a few hundred miles directly north because Taylor Swift grew up in Eastern PA. Anyway, this isn't a Taylor Swift episode, but anyway, the similarities are there. Should be noted.
Right. But it seemed like really fast. Like she just started dabbling with music at age 10. Like that doesn't seem that early to me.
Did it say anything about whether or not it was her playing or her voice or that like got her noticed or just there was an it factor there, a star factor?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know, man. But I mean, it was like right out of the gate, signed her for $2 million, gave her a $900,000 advance, and she dropped out of high school, which is like
before a record was even written.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So like, that's just seems insane, man. Like, hit the brake. She hit her big break really fast, really hard.
She's not even of driving age at this point,
right?
No, I mean, really, like she was 15 at this point?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've got a lot of stuff here. I have like a whole page of fun facts, 3 pages.
So what happens next? They come out with a hit, a single, or like she writes a record? Like she takes the advance and she writes something out?
Right. So her first album came out in 2004 and Complicated was the big hit off of that.
Great tune.
Oh, and it still kind of holds up, man. Like,
yeah.
So with that album, she became the first female solo album to hit #1 in the UK, and she actually won a Guinness World Record for being the youngest artist to do so, which is just wild to me.
The first female artist to reach #1 in the UK ever?
Yeah.
God save the Queen. My goodness. That is honestly, like when we were going into this episode, I was like, and we'll go into this later, but I wanted to talk about like, well, she doesn't make any pop Mount Rushmores and she wouldn't make any punk rock Mount Rushmores. If you're thinking about like Joan Jett and like what different phases of Avril's career, but then you're like, then you start to dig a little bit and you're like, I still don't think she's on any of those Mount Rushmores, but there are definitely some facts that need to be said out loud as we work our way through. So I'm excited for where this conversation heads later because, okay, first UK female artist to ever hit #1. With Complicated, you're saying?
Her album, which Complicated was on.
Gotcha. Okay. That is honestly blowing me away a little bit. So what year is this?
It was her 2002 album, Let Go, with Complicated on it.
Okay. Any other hits off that record?
Yeah, Skater Boy was on that.
Oh, so Complicated was the first one to drop.
Yeah, Skater Boy, I'm With You.
I don't know if I remember I'm With You.
I'm With You. Like, you'd recognize it if you heard it. Losing Grip, okay. I'm not sure that I would.
Okay, so Skater Boy drops second, and she's a phenomenon. Like, is she wearing ties? Does she tour America? Like, this drops in it?
Let me get through.
I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm very curious about
Okay.
where this heads.
Get through a couple more things here.
I'm just excited. I'm just spitting out everything. It's all coming back to me now.
Well, I had no idea her level of success because when you're 12 years old, you don't think about it like that. But
no, when I was 12 or around that time, I mean, Miss You came on the radio, and I was like, someone had given me Enema of the State like in the late 90s, like on a CD, and I'm like, oh, it'd be cool if, like, this is a band I like, but I never even thought like, I wonder if they're still together or coming out with a new album. Right, just like Blink-182, because my cousins liked Weezer a lot, so I was just like, there's all these mystical names of groups that I was listening to via CD player, and I was like, wait, that's the voice that I know. Oh my God, So you're like, oh crap, I got to track all these bands.
Right.
But so yeah, definitely not tracking like, oh, how'd she do in the UK? Oh, number one, first female. Oh, dope. I'm a super alert 12-year-old.
It's just like a really disconnected view of everything. Like I didn't realize the music I listened to on the radio, there were like real living people that made them. Like it was just such a weird disconnect. But Avril was actually the third best selling Canadian female artist of all time, only to be beat by Celine Dion and Shania Twain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Robin Sparkles in a close fourth?
I have no idea.
Nah, just kidding. I hate how much I love that show. Do we know who came in fourth and fifth? Do we have it?
No.
Oh, okay.
2004 album Under My Skin topped Billboard 200 charts for 1 week in June, breaking up Usher's 3-week streak for Confessions. She ousted Usher with Confessions.
That's a heavy-hitting blow. I mean,
sold 10 million copies worldwide.
So, like, let's so far track to things that would make you be like, huh. Okay, first album to hit number one in the UK as a woman, right?
Guinness World Records for the youngest artist to do so.
Insanely huge. She's top-selling Canadian female act in top three, right?
Third best, yeah.
And in her prime, if we're just going 2000s pop culture like barbershop talk, dethrones Usher's Confessions with the sophomore effort, which wasn't even a slump if it came in that hot, right?
It wasn't.
Like bodying Usher with the second record?
Yeah.
That's, I mean, again, I don't even know what kind of case we're trying to build because I don't even know if I'm rooting for her. But these are insanely interesting facts to me. Like, this is oddly illuminating because I don't even know if she gets, she dated Sum 41 and Nickelback. Like, is she associated with acts that aren't as respected? Like, I feel like her persona's dropped ever since Hey, you, I don't like your, or whatever the lawsuit was where somebody said she ripped off the song, Hey, you get off my cloud or whatever. I feel like for some reason over the past decade it's slipped. And we can get into that later, but I'm still getting blown away by her early career.
All right.
Shot from a coffee shop, passed her driving test, taking over, shattering records left and right. The Ascent is incredible so far.
Yeah. So get this. It's interesting you brought up I Miss You by Blink-182 because My Happy Ending listed 151 on 2004's top 200 songs in the year, beating I Miss You by over 30 spots.
That's a bop too.
But
kind of a sad bop, but a bop nonetheless.
It's crazy. All right, moving on.
I like you, but you're crazy.
You're crazy. Moving right along, 2007 with the album you're referring to, Best Damn Thing, topped charts in 7 countries with Girlfriend reaching number 1 on Billboard Hot 100.
This is the third record. This is like 07?
Yeah. Okay. And I just want to give a quick memory.
And this is, go ahead, go with your quick one.
Okay. Of you taking, what was his name? Our sophomore year physics teacher, Peter, was it a G? Taking his media cart and just blasting Girlfriend like any chance you could. And like screaming the words. Just being like, I didn't know Pat loved Avril so much.
Yeah. I don't remember that. It's weird going through life. Somebody posted on Reddit the other day, like you think of all the things that you get talked about for, whether it's a stranger seeing some weird guy doing something, and there's like a string of stories you're associated with or not. Memories that people could identify me as, something as simple as that, still blows me away because I have absolutely zero recollection of going through an Avril phase. I believe it happened. I truly do. but this is not in my brain, not in my head.
So sorry, what were you going to say, though?
Oh, now you throw me off. Now I'm questioning every life decision I've ever made real quick. Let me just like swoon real bit. I'll be right back up. I'll be right back up to speed in a minute.
Okay.
No. Oh, yeah. Oh, what I was going to say was, so I don't have any recollection of that per se, but I do remember thinking when I first saw the music video, I was at like a baseball practice for American Legion, and a young gentleman was like, Avril Lavigne, she is an attractive young lass. And I was like, I don't remember anybody really talking about her like that way. And for me and the fellas at that particular baseball practice were discussing that perhaps it was a bit of a rebrand for her in terms of wardrobe, style of music, and things of that nature. Perhaps it was a little more poppy. Perhaps the look was a little more polished. I think if had she worn a tie that day, it would have gone under the shirt or like under a collar appropriately, perhaps. So I believe. I understood where they were coming from, I guess, at that juncture. Do you believe it was a rebranding? That by that third album, it was totally different? Or do you think Skater Boy was about as poppy as it was going to be anyway? I mean, at the time, Kelly Clarkson's first record, Miss Independent, I mean, that was definitely harder than any of the pop stuff she came out with later anyway. It was like alt guitar, female-fronted, four pieces just in at the time? Or like, did she go through a rebrand and get poppy later? Or is that the natural?
Interesting you'd bring that up because there was a song written for Avril's 2007 album that they decided would be better suited as a Kelly Clarkson song. So then they sold the song to Kelly Clarkson and then she performed it on an album that came out around the same time.
Was it Behind These Hazel Eyes by chance?
I'm not sure. I forget. I saw it in the fun.
It would have been
facts,
really
didn't write
great
it
if it
down.
was. I would have looked like I had not checked the notes before the show, but actually did.
No, they're not in the notes actually.
Oh,
so.
fair enough. Good, I read them and I would know. No, but simple question though, was that a rebrand or what did you think when you first saw the music video for Girlfriend? Because it seemed different, it felt different in a lot of ways.
I mean, I think it felt different, but it still held true to, I guess, the vibe of her past. I know reading through the fun facts in here that like she was really against showing skin and like trying to look quote unquote pretty or like society's view of pretty. She said that she turned down a lot of really great photo shoots because they wanted her to show skin and like wear shorter dresses. And then when she came out with that album and kind of rebranded, people gave her a lot of heat for like changing. And I guess her response was like, get over it. People grow up and they change their minds. I'm who I was before, and what you appreciated was that I didn't do what people wanted me to do. And now you're trying to put me in a box where I was. That's not what I want. So respect me for what I want now. And I thought that was just like so fucking punk rock. Like people trying to give her shit for like being true to what she felt she wanted to be in
like
that
she was
moment.
probably what? Obviously not 15 still, so changes probably were taking place.
I mean, early to mid 20s, I think at that point.
Yeah, I was going to say like it's definitely like being 15, 25, and 35, you're like, you're not like you were when you were 15. You've changed. She's like, yeah, I have. Like,
Hopefully.
that's accurate. You know, like, thanks for noticing.
No, exactly.
So I get that. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair. I just remember it being a train of thought at the time, a talking point, some water cooler talk, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, I thought she looked great. You know, not that I'm going to try to reduce her to just her looks because her music
I
is
would
great.
reduce her to the tie itself because when we thought about doing this episode, I was like, I don't have much to say other than let's see, I can't remember anything except a few hits and the tie over the t-shirt and that some graphic tee that she didn't. It was like a high school she didn't even go to. She found at a Salvation Army or something like that, and it sold out or something. Like somebody put up a quick website to sell the t-shirt or something, and the high school reaped the benefits. Or I could be incredibly wrong. We'll have to fact check that later at the end of the episode. But she did a lot for graphic tees, did a lot for kind of just, I don't know, the early 2000s, and we've danced around this throughout the life of this show. We're a dangerous time for both fashion and music, but seems like she walked the line pretty well in terms of just releasing hits and then being moderately punky. You know, we were going to get into I wanted to talk about the legacy stuff because it's killing me, but because I wanted to be like, you know, she's not Joan Jett. She's not like the queen of punk or anything. Or I don't think she makes that Mount Rushmore. And I don't think she makes any pop Mount Rushmores either, unless they're Canada specific. Obviously, she's number 3 top selling, right? So like, she's definitely up there. Like, she's definitely an artist that you have to address. But, in terms of legacy and respect and all that, I wanted to ask later, and maybe now, I don't know, because we were going to talk about where we first heard her and kind of to the beat of the show itself, where we were growing up and how these things impacted us. But, is she even, just from a taste standpoint or a legacy standpoint, better than what Gwen Stefani did with No Doubt, at the time? But I guess she was an artist that was named after herself, not with a band. So it depends what rules you're setting up for this particular. I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but do you get what I'm trying to ask? Right?
I totally
I
do.
want her to win in a category more than most successful selling Canadian female. You know what I mean? But that seems so specific. Like, what props can we give her?
I've got more better accolades than that even.
Oh, well, we can hold that off, but I would love to hear them because I'm still, let's go.
Okay. I'll just blast through all these real quick.
No, Sam, let's talk about it.
Okay. You said she kind of had a slump in her last few albums. The last two hit gold.
Oh.
I mean, I feel like I never hear anything about her. I don't know how she does it, but good for her. Within 2 years of starting her career, won 8 Grammys, 221 awards in total with 301 nominations in her career. And by 2013, I think there were still 2 albums after that. She sold 50 million copies of her record, all her records, which is a sixth of the American population. That's
wow.
insane. So in 2009, and these are really important accolades here. In 2009, Billboard named Avril Lavigne number 10 in the best pop artists of the entire decade of the 2000s.
Number 10?
Number 10. And dude, think of who you're going up against in the early 2000s. You got Maroon 5 was a big one.
Do we have any more examples?
I mean, I think Blink-182 was on that list. Jason Mraz, Usher, Justin Timberlake. I mean, there was a lot going on in the early 2000s.
Because I think the point of this show and what we want people to hear and know is that it's a decade we were forced to go through our growing up in. We get that it was a show in a lot of ways. And it seems like Avril is one of the maybe smaller diamonds in the rough. But I think what we're trying to say is that this was happening and people were into it. And now, like, the karaoke legacy at least is strong. And she's been oddly financially successful. She's sold a frick ton of records. That's very interesting to me, for sure. So so she's critical to the decade. Like, if we were doing that's so aughts, are the aughts the zeros or the teens? I always forget.
I think it's
anyway. The queen of the aughts.
And to add to that, number 28 in the highest grossing artist of the decade based on albums and singles.
Okay, so these aren't like blow you away numbers. Like it would have been cooler if she was like number 6 Billboard named that, and then maybe like number 6, top grossing.
Dude, there were some big names that decade though in pop.
I know, but we're like, I find myself as we talk about this wanting to root for her more and more because Skater Boy was spelled so weird and it was such a bop. You know what I mean? Like, and not that it was our generation's Hanson or anything, but I think people would define the era by how it was, right in the height of AOL Instant Messenger, things like that. The way the song title was spelled, how kind of pop punk was kind of coming into its own, but also weirder things were happening. And again, with wardrobe and all that. Yeah, I don't know. You keep going. You have more.
Okay, so it sounds like you need more convincing. I have one last.
Well, no, I think what I'm saying is like I'm finding myself wanting to root for her.
Okay,
but I don't know what crown to give her, how big or how small, or what exactly the category we're building for her. Because I would hate to come out at the end of this and be like, yeah, she was good. She was just a solid artist. But specifically Canadian, obviously she's a legend. But anyway,
so this is the most compelling thing beyond all the numbers and the figures.
Okay. Was she married to Nickelback and Sum 41 singers?
At one point, both ended in divorce, yeah.
Okay. And they were both Canadian bands?
Yes.
Okay.
So, a direct quote from Sir Ian McKellen.
Whoa.
Gandalf, for those of you
For those who don't know, we're talking about Gandalf, the gray. Or no, the white. I forget which one he turns into. He turns into the white. I know.
Okay, so here's a quote. A pop-punk chanteuse, a post-grunge Valkyrie with the wounded soul of a poet and the explosive pugnancy of a Canadian.
Ooh.
Right?
A post-grunge Valkyrie?
Yeah.
Wow.
Chanteuse? I had to Google what the fuck that meant. And how to pronounce it.
A post-grunge Valkyrie.
With the wounded soul of a poet and the explosive pugnacity of a Canadian.
That's high praise.
That's wild, dude, from fucking Gandalf. And even higher praise, when she married Derek Whibley, he took her last name.
Whoa. That's the Sum 41 man?
Yeah. Wild. So, I mean, that's a lot of the stuff that I have on her. I had no idea that she had the commercial success. Like, would you allow me to tell my story of my first memory of her?
Yes, I think that's why we're all here. I think that's we're injecting our bit of the old version of the show into it. Yeah. And yeah, I love to.
Yeah. So my sister, I mean, she was my main source of new music when I was growing up. And she was mainly just like listening to stuff that was like on the radio. You know, none of it was like groundbreaking, I guess. But Avril kind of showed her that like women have a place in this like modern punk inspired kind of poppy music. And my sister was like, I'm going to be a musician. So we went to World of Music in Erie and she was looking at guitars. And one of the sales guys there was reading like a Fender magazine from the manufacturer. And he was like, oh, if you're interested, you can look at the magazine and see what else they have. And she like came running over to me to show me this magazine. Like, you will never guess what this guy gave me. And like, I thought the dude gave her like a fucking guitar or something, you know, like the way she was so excited. And he just like gave her the magazine, but she flipped through that thing for like weeks. I can remember just being like, man, Avril Lavigne's so cool. I'm going to be a little punk rock chick. And, I mean, I do think when you're talking about the Mount Rushmore, Avril Lavigne, like from many sources, was called like the pop punk queen or like the pop punk princess. And she kind of like, apparently Paramore admitted that like Avril paved the way for them. And
okay, see, I didn't want to blow this take or before we did the Haley Williams episode, but it seems like Avril deserves it at this point. Like, so in the 90s, everyone would talk about the Rachel haircut, right? From Friends,
Yeah.
Jennifer Aniston. And in my head, just you would go to a show or go to a, you know, like scenes were a thing and they're like going to your local hangout, or maybe that's just a high school thing in general, but it seemed like it was more like there was like, even if you were preppy, there was like a version of you that wore a black t-shirt to a show on the weekend to try to fit in with like scene kids, right? I might be making that up, but it seems like that was an early 2000s thing. Like there was AIM, there was dudes that wore collars, but everyone had like that black t-shirt in their drawer just in case they got invited to a show where they'd have to pay $7 at the door or whatever. And I feel like there was a certain time when everyone had Haley Williams straight red hair, guy or girl, but like that straight, goofy, in front of the face bangs. Like to me, that was the Rachel for the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Was, you know, not that anybody called it the Haley, but to me, it swept through that quickly and that like it was that famous, I thought. But hearing all of this and Avril's success, which came obviously before Paramore got big, yeah, what a weird niche conversation to have. But perhaps she did lay a little bit of groundwork there, right? I mean, just for, like you said, the anecdote about your sister in the magazine, you know, was there a bit of a, you know, had there been a forgotten Joan Jett era, like girls can be punk type thing that like brought it back into the, you know, I guess if the argument is that it got poppy too quick or was it too poppy to begin with, if people are even saying that, which maybe they're not, whatever. But, you know, it opened the door for maybe a lot of other acts to swoop in and just kind of, but again, no doubt was there in the 90s. So I don't know, maybe it's just the rotation was there for another female artist to break through. I don't know what I'm saying, but there seems like it seems like she's not getting enough credit by everything we're saying, right? Like if Paramore was giving her the credit and we were going to do a whole freaking Haley Williams episode, then we have to give her the credit, right? Like no one in that, at least in that decade yet, had done what she had done, right? And maybe I'm giving too much credit to the band, no doubt, but I don't know.
I mean, I think obviously they're two different things. And yeah, for entirely different generations, I think is the important factor here. People who were inspired by Avril probably came later than the people who were inspired by No Doubt, right? Just by a matter of linear
Well,
time.
it might be wrong to even compare her to like No Doubt or Save Ferris or any of those like ska acts that were fronted by women. That might never be the same ballpark to even be comparing people in, because her commercial success was obviously so vast that you and I didn't realize, and maybe others don't as well, that there was something else going on. There was a bigger picture, maybe pop broad appeal thing, putting ties over T-shirts is like a funny thing we texted to each other before we did the episode. But then it was like, no, we're like, there's actually like a scene look and like a sweeping, a lot of yearbook photos are going to be impacted by this straight hair look thing that Haley Williams is going to be famous for, and kind of, perfect the look and front a 4-piece band that, comes out with 2 better albums. And again, that we're not doing that episode right now, but it's very interesting that they gave props to her. I find that very interesting indeed.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I never thought of her as being that like foundational to all of it, because to me, it seemed like she was just my age at the time, like slightly older, I think 4 or 5 years older than us. And it's hard to imagine someone like our age around the same time inspiring a generation so much, just because it seems like it's nothing I could ever do. So like, how could someone else our age do that? Which obviously is not true at all, and probably shows some self-image issues about myself. It's really crazy to me to hear how well she's done. And I feel like I haven't heard her name in years, and she had a new album come out, or a new song come out. It was the first music video released in several years, and within 2 weeks it has 24 million views on YouTube. And I feel like no artist who started that young, with few exceptions, is still as relevant and as successful throughout their entire career. It is mind-blowing to me, and it's just makes me really happy for her, and makes me wish that I hadn't let her fall off the radar.
Well, there's 2 points I want to go with, because part of the legacy thing is that I kind of want to have a fun discussion with you about, there wasn't a ton of karaoke favorites that came from at least the guitar-centric acts of the early 2000s. Obviously,
That's fair.
There was plenty of solid pop acts. I don't want to light, I haven't done the appropriate research to make any sweeping generalizations, but so there's a lot of legacy stuff within the karaoke. So it's like, but I wanted to touch on this first. She has seemed to, and I'm glad we didn't touch on this very much. She had 2 marriages. Who cares? That doesn't define her in any way.
Right.
But in terms of tabloid things, there's no one story that sticks, negative or positive. It's just kind of like, oh, she's been wildly successful commercially and popular. Can you think of anything? Like, I just did a quick Google and I couldn't really find anything. She's mostly just made music since she could not even drive a vehicle, and has been productive and successful. Like that,
Yeah.
You can't really say that. A lot of people that start that young, especially.
Yeah, and she's been really active in like a lot of charities, and putting out albums and songs for different charities, and like did special releases for the Special Olympics. She announced in 2014 that she has Lyme's disease, so she's been doing a lot of stuff for those foundations to raise awareness. I mean, she's Canadian. You don't need these big, other than the Avril is dead conspiracy, which you probably won't have time to touch on, but it's wild if you want to read about it. Some links in the show notes.
Actually, can we do, since we're doing the part before the legacy discussion, so that is one weird thing that comes up with the Google, as part of, I feel like it should be addressed at least a little bit. What did you read?
I read a lot, and it's just funny that people say that she died in 2004, and they originally hired a body double because she didn't like the paparazzi, and then the record label still wanted to make money, so they just had the body double record all the albums, and not a single article could agree on how she died. And they're like, well, the proof is that when she was 14, her nose looked like this. And then when she was 27, it looked like this. It's like you don't grow into your bodies at some point.
Right. This could either be surgery or the way the body grows,
or a totally different person, like,
or that too. Hey,
and
yeah.
then they're like, the body's double's name is Melissa, and in a photo shoot, she had the word Melissa written on her hand in Sharpie, and it was Melissa screaming for help because she wanted to get out of this thing where she was trapped as a different person. And then the song slipped away, they said, was like irrefutable proof that it was Melissa begging for help, with the word saying, "The day you slipped away was the day I found I won't be the same. It wasn't fake. It happened. You passed by." And they're like, so clearly it's her asking for help, talking about how she died and she isn't actually her. It's the weakest foundation I've ever seen anything built on in my life.
We're building a case for Avril to be included in rock lore. Having a nice little conspiracy theory tucked in there. I mean, people take quotes or whatever. I'm just trying to set this up the best way I can. The Beatles obviously have the Paul is dead stuff. If you play the record backwards, things like that.
Yeah.
A little, Jack White and Meg being brother and sister or whatever. For her to have a nice death conspiracy, that ups the resume a little bit. Like for you to be famous enough for people to spend the time to toil over those lyrics and create Melissa. Whether it's true or not, blah, 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 whatever. Like Tupac being alive somewhere in the minds of many, right? Like
Andrew WK.
That adds a little bit to your celebrity persona, like in your legacy all around, I would say. So good for her for having a fake death conspiracy. Like
it's just so funny.
It is obscure. It is strange, but I'm glad we got to touch on it a little bit because of how, when you're like, oh, Avril, you'd be like, all right, tie over T-shirt, Skater Boy. Oh, those other hits? Oh, yeah, those were good. Oh, isn't she dead? You know what I mean? Like, oh, maybe some other Canadian action. Maybe something about a Nickelback marriage, but very interesting. So I wanted to talk legacy real quick. Pop punk is pretty loosely defined, especially on this show. We can't really put our thumb on it, which you may or may not agree with that sentiment. But so, I've mentioned Joan Jett a couple times this episode. I don't think Avril really, I don't think you could put her on the cutting room floor in terms of unless someone wants to school me on this, I would love to hear it because I'm mostly just interested in this story. Like, how did this just kind of, is it because it happened so normally and not crazily that people kind of just let it slip by without acknowledging it in this way? But I don't think she makes any Mount Rushmores for female punk artists, right? And I know she definitely doesn't make any Mount Rushmores for female pop artists. But then if we're looking through the lens of pop punk, I think Gwen Stefani and No Doubt and Save Ferris and all that, there was this ska scene thing in the 90s or early 2000s or whatever, which is a different thing altogether. I mean, are we getting too specific to give her credit for something? Or I mostly, before we get to she had a few good karaoke songs, and her legacy actually lives on really well in that sense. Before we get to that part, I just want to hear what you say, how does she hold up compared to some of the other female artists that dipped into maybe this more of a counterculture alternative, I guess, portrayal of what they were trying to do?
Yeah, it's really hard. And defining genres is always seems like a lost cause, I guess. I think there might be something to the fact that while she does have a pretty consistent band, the focus is mainly her as a solo artist with a backing band. So again, it's also I don't know if narrowing down so far as to what to call her as a genre to see how she fits in with people who came before and after her, and is comparing her to No Doubt even relevant because they came so far before. But Avril is essentially a solo artist, whereas No Doubt is a band. Does that matter? Yeah, I don't know, man, because I never would have guessed she's held on to her success as long as she has. So I think in terms of, I like how you said no head on Mount Rushmore for pop or punk, but when you narrow it down to pop punk, I think that is an important distinction to make, though.
Well, I think you look at it's okay that she's a nation's top 3 sell. You know what I mean? You start talking about things people in our age didn't get a chance to appreciate Janet Jackson, right? In our lifetime, there's the Super Bowl fiasco, but she has such a storied career that she's a super heavy hitter in pop. You know what I mean? Somebody like Janet Jackson would dethrone her if she was trying to compete against pop acts, right? So it goes from age to age, experience to experience, what high school dance song, this and that, whatever. Nostalgia is super dangerous, as we've established on this show. But I think when you start to talk about the things that she did it's like, why am I rooting for her so hard? You know what I mean? Like there's something there that is, maybe it stands on its own, and I would love to hear people's feedback, right? I mean, so I'm glad we did an episode on it at the very least. It's something that shouldn't be ignored. Where does Avril rank? I guess Billboard said it all. She was a top 10 artist in the early 2000s, and that's not something, I mean, that's huge. To be the top 10 of anything in any whole decade, that's significant in itself, right? And it was for the right reasons. Like, we remember the Click 5, but only because of how laughably awful their music video and hit song were, right? Just the Girl I'm Looking For was just like peak. There were several bad directions music and art and hair and clothing were going. And Avril was never a part of any of those. The Click 5 very much was. You know what I mean? So I feel like she's remembered for the right reasons. She just had a very solid, productive career. A nice little death conspiracy. So it's kind of like, hopefully, yeah, just let her do her thing. She's probably not complaining too much, I'm glad we were able to lay out all the facts. And I'll leave you with this before we go to the songs of the week, unless you wanted to have a closing thought as well. But what of her songs would you sing if you were going to go do karaoke right now?
I want to say Girlfriend.
Ooh.
I mean, Complicated. I was watching actually all of her music videos probably a little over a year ago. And it is kind of wild how, with the exception of Skater Boy, how most of them really hold up to like what's coming out today. And I think that also says a lot for like, was she ahead of her time, or just how good she was? And yeah, it's crazy that like she is well known for the music she's made and not much more. Like, she's just a true fucking artist,
which can only be construed as a pro instead
right.
of con, right? You're like, we're digging for all these behind the music things that just aren't there, and it's like, she's one of the most successful in Canadian. Okay. And well, people thought she was dead or tried to say she was, but she's not. So, it's just like, yeah, I think I would have to go. Complicated would be a good one, because I feel like you'd win the room over if you were even decent.
Hard to sing. That's why I wouldn't.
Yeah,
choose
hard
it.
to sing. Skater Boy's hard to sing because it's up there too. But that would be like, I forgot about this song. Like. But I feel like Complicated would be the best option. But if you couldn't sing it, you should do Girlfriend, because it's hey. You could just kind of yell, sing
right,
it.
Right.
Kind of, it's short enough. It's one of those pop punk songs that isn't too long. You never want to get up there and rip Stairway to Heaven or anything like that, because we're going to dance during the musical breaks. Just come on, have it. Read the room. You know what I'm saying? So, anyway, I'm really glad we did this. I don't have any more final thoughts unless you did, and I'm ready to give a song of the week if you are my good partner.
Let's go to song of the week.
John.
Okay, I made, after several weeks of, I don't do well with this segment, but I have a couple. I feel like I'm going to have a good stretch because I'm really going to try again, I promise. This one is, it's called Thug Life by Brockhampton. And what I really want you to do is go listen to their latest album on Spotify from first song to second song. Thug Life's the second. It's just very interesting, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I love the song itself, but I don't know if it's representative of what the band's trying to do, but then I have no idea what the band's trying to do. It's all very... Maggie Rogers tweeted about them, so I jumped on it and checked them out. But that tune itself is very catchy and cool and good, but when you get deeper into the album, you're like, I'm not sure what's going on here. But yeah, I would say Thug Life by Brockhampton is what I was definitely jamming to Saturday morning.
All right. Well, I'll check it out on Apple Music, not Spotify, because I'm not a peasant.
Cool.
You responded so positively that now I feel bad about it.
Yeah. Well, kindness kills. But also, like, who cares where you hear it, right? Like,
right.
I honestly feel that way. So good for you, man. Listen to it on whatever's available to you. I care more about you hearing it and letting me know if you like it or not. So, shade intended or not, like, it's cool, man. We're still going to do the show next week, so whatever.
So I found the song that I've been jamming a lot this week in kind of a weird way. I was really diving into Siri Shortcuts that released on the new iOS 12. So I was trying to find some podcasts that would talk about them so I can learn more. And I turned to Cortex, one of my favorite podcasts in the world, and they talk about like workplace productivity kind of stuff. And in the episode, they were mentioning music as a tool for concentration. And the host Mike was, I guess, he solicited a request for a bunch of artists that don't have any vocals in it. And he mentioned something about lo-fi hip hop, and I had no idea what he meant by that. So I take that information, I thought I forgot about it, but I was editing a podcast and I like to have like old, like retro PS1 game playthroughs, like the original Spyro the Dragon. I'll have that playing on my second screen as I'm editing. And I found something that was like Zelda related. So I clicked on it and it was like, oh, it's a Zelda mashup of lo-fi hip hop. And then the recommended song from that page was called Samurai Japanese Lo-Fi Hip Hop. And you know how weirdly obsessed I am with anything Japanese. So I clicked on it and it has been playing nonstop. It is
Okay.
like, there's some stuff, like there's a couple Biggie samples in there. There's some like Naruto samples, but it's mainly just like a really slow, mellow hip hop beats with like a couple different Japanese instruments in it and like some melodies, but it's like
Any lyrics?
no lyrics. No, it's all instrumental. And the mix itself isn't like super good because it's like it's a mix of different SoundCloud artists and the songs are just kind of faded in and out. Some are better than others. I can't remember the one that really stuck out to me, but if you go to the link in the show notes, it'll go to that part of the like 40-minute track that I am really digging. The first 4 minutes are super good too, but it's just like really mellow. Like you can either listen to it and like not help but want to dance, or just kind of have it on in the background to help you focus on something else. It's really, really, really blowing my mind, and I'm really trying to explore the lo-fi hip hop stuff more because I'm kind of finding myself in situations where like I can't listen to a podcast because I can't dedicate that much concentration to it, but I'm not really wanting to listen to something actively. So I don't want to put on a band that I love and then not listen, because to me it feels like disrespectful.
Perfecting study music, perhaps?
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people call that kind of stuff, like study relaxation music.
Right. In college, they were like, yeah, throw on classical. I'm like, yeah, let me get on that list I've been curating for years of classical music I loved. It's just like Google Beethoven. You've already wasted half your study session. But yeah, no, if they have here's one 40-minute track, just set it and forget it. That sounds like once you get into it and maybe get into the artist itself, there's a lot of uses for that. That sounds very interesting. I'm very intrigued. Yeah,
there is a huge problem with a lot of those videos, though, being like an hour long with an ad every like 6 minutes.
Yeah, once they find out it's popular, like there's a lot of old Marins, WTFs on YouTube where they split it up like 7, like once it becomes a thing. Like Enema of the State, I think, is on in full on YouTube, but they clip it up maybe 15 times, so it's like, this was not worth it.
Which, I mean, you can just rip the audio and then put it on your phone,
Well, you could use Apple Music.
Well, it's not on Apple Music.
Oh, isn't it? No,
definitely not on Spotify either, dude.
Holler. It's on Tidal. No, just kidding. No disrespect to Jay-Z. I don't even know why I said that.
Tidal. Dude. Whatever.
I don't even know.
So yeah, that's mine. Kind of different, but
at the end of the day, it is what it is.
I think the next few recommendations from me are going to be in a similar vein to that. So I'm excited. Cool. I'm really excited to explore it. I'm like just found out about it like 2 days ago. So
cool. Yeah, I mean, we've been doing a couple episodes where we've been test running things with our third co-host, Zach, before we hit the century mark and really officially rebrand. But it was nice to get back in the chair and just grip it and rip it like we are used to doing. This was a fun one, and I think a good one. And I hope if you're driving or flying or going somewhere and listen to this, that you enjoyed yourself. And we hope that you go listen to Tuscaloosa Slug Butt, because that episode is the most underrated, ill-listened to, best effort we've ever done. And it's really a crime is what's happening to that episode, because we did like an hour-long mailbag that was meticulously written. Just kidding. It was not meticulously written, except that it was. Anyway, Tom, I love you very much, and this was fun and good, even though our technical difficulties on both ends frustrate us at the beginning. Yeah, I'm glad we had a second take, and this one turned out pretty good, I'd say. How about you, old buddy?
Yeah, I've been wanting to talk about Avril for a while. We probably won't be the last episode.
Well, now I'm like, we got to do not only a Haley Williams episode, but a Kelly Clarkson episode as well, because there's some American Idol stuff and some, it's just like, if we're doing the early 2000s, those things are going to come up. And obviously, we're going to do male acts as well. We have a few other things lined up, and we're not going to announce all of them, keep a few secret. Hopefully episode 99, 100, and 101, we come out firing on all cylinders. I really wish this would have been one of them, but, maybe if you like those and you hadn't heard this at that point, you've come back to return and listen to some of the other stuff we've done in the process. The My Chemical Romance episode is good, and the Hanson episode is good as well. So if you're into the podcast, thanks for joining us. We are on Twitter @_reminiscentfm, and thanks for joining us. Have a lovely day, weekend, week, whatever you're experiencing. And Tom, I love you, my man.
I love you too. And show notes can also be found at reminiscentpodcast.com/episode/97. You can talk to us on Twitter. You can ask us questions on the websites through the AMA link. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Love you, dude.
Love you too, man. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, 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 yeah.